Everyone is quick to blame home builders when it comes to the shortage of homes that are available for sale, but at least not meant to carry all of the blame. I think we need to readjust our focus, talk about this a little bit, because here's the truth. We do have a massive shortage of homes, but I don't think it's fully the builder's fault. So here's the thing. When it comes to home building, and I will tell you, I am one of the biggest fans of new construction homes. I sell a lot of new construction homes. That's my specialty in real estate. So I'm a big advocate when it comes to new construction homes. One of the biggest challenges that I think faces this massive shortage that we see in homes is the government red tape. So here's what I mean by that. To start a new development or to start a new neighborhood, or even throughout the process of a neighborhood, there's so many moving pieces that a builder and a developer has to work through, has to get answers on, has to dot their T's, cross their I's, check their boxes, and do all of these different things. And frankly, there's a lot of red tape that goes into that. Now, I want to give this caveat by saying I believe there should be checks and balances. Yes, I believe, people shouldn't just run off the rails and do whatever they want to do, but we've got to figure out a way to get to cut through some of that red tape, to do something to get these builders moving on this process. Because here's the truth. When you think about developments, and I'm thinking specifically here in DFW, and we're seeing developments popping up everywhere. There are several communities that are opening here at the end of 2023 or moving into 2024. When you roll back the clock on that, those developments started years ago. Plans for those things started some 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, in some spaces 10 years ago. Right. So we came out of the market of the crash of the early or 08, 09, 10, things like that. And all of these builders and all of these developers, they kind of got a little scared and they pulled back. And so when they pulled back, that was an indication of what was going to be future development plans. So then, of course, if you roll the clock back 3 or 4 years, what did we have? We had a massive pandemic, right? And so all of these builders kind of pulled back, they got a little scared, and then, developments that we thought were going to happen didn't happen, or they got delayed or whatever. And now as the market is in full swing, like, we are feeling the effects of less development, because let's be honest, there's a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of effort that goes into these developments. And a lot of these builders spend a lot of money on the front end, putting in infrastructure, putting in plans, running things through city planning and zoning, rezoning, all of it. There's a ton of money that goes in on the front end for the builder, for the developer, that has to be spent, and they have to have that capital to do that in order to start these developments. And when they don't do that, it's a trickle down. We see that trickle down year over year as to why we don't have more and more homes. So yeah, I think there's, some of the blame should be shared on the builders, but you have to understand, like, the liability that they're carrying to get these homes and development started and neighborhoods moving is massive. And so I will say I am, don't want to get political, but the government, both, nationally, state, and really locally, has to start figuring out ways to incentivize builders to cut through that red tape, to make it easier to start developments, to make it easier to start building homes. And I'm not saying high-end homes. This is not, I'm saying affordable, genuine, like, normal people can buy these homes. We need builders that are, we need them to start these houses. And so we've got to get through the red tape. But it even goes more than just like policy. It goes into like hiring, right? So for example, one of the cities that I do a lot of business in here in DFW, they're growing. They've got 6 different housing developments going on right now. And do you know how many city inspectors they have that are responsible for getting out to all of those job sites? 6 different developments, 1 city inspector, which means, so if you stretch that out, this one development, they've got all this work that happens, and then at each point there's a inspection that happens, right? So it's like, there's a foundation inspection, or there's a framing inspection. Well, if there's one guy working and he's got 6 different developments, the math doesn't math. Like, he's not going to be able to get into all of those places and do all the reviews that he needs to do in a timely manner. And I've seen sometimes where a city inspector will come out and it'll be raining, and they'll be like, I don't want to get out of the truck today. I'm just going to fail. And then it gets pushed back 2 weeks. And you're like, what did we fail for? And he's like, well, I just didn't get out of the truck. What do you mean? You're like, yeah, I just decided. So cities and counties need to start finding more qualified people to help streamline these processes. If they want development to continue to happen, you've got to have those things streamlined. The other challenge builders are facing right now is we saw the labor and material happen, through the pandemic and coming out of that. We all remember watching lumber prices do this little number and steel prices do this number, and then labor prices did this number. And so there's the challenge that they're facing is the material prices have stabilized some, but I think there's still a inherent fear as to what's happening there. And the skilled labor market for home building has, like, the pool has declined and the cost has gone up. So there's not enough bricklayers, there's not enough framers, there's not enough electricians, there's not enough plumbers to go around. And so these trades understand that they're in high demand, which means they can charge more, which is, I'm all for charge for the skill that you have, but we need more of those people in those spaces, right? And so builders are facing this challenge of, we're struggling to get supply and we can only order once we have permits or once we've taken down the lot or once we've started. Well, then we have to have enough labor to go around, and then we get projects that are sitting and they're moving. And so there's a litany of all of these things that go on that have contributed to this shortage of homes, right? So all of this kind of comes back to my opinion of, like, you hear all the guys on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook like, oh, the housing market's going to crash. This for me is like the point to say it's not going to crash. There's not enough homes, especially here in DFW where I work, where I sell, where I live. There are people by the thousands moving into this market on the daily, and they're have a shortage of homes. They're looking for inventory. They're looking for new construction. Area as a whole is continuing to boom. And so, like, builders can't keep up. Talking to builders, and they're like, yeah, like we can't start more projects. I'm like, what do you mean you can't start more projects? They're like, well, we're capped at, like, we can't sell anything right now because we are so far behind on all the stuff we have started. We don't have the labor, we don't have manpower to even get through it. So we're having to, like, limit what we can sell in some of these neighborhoods, which, is not a good thing, right? So they're having to limit. Or what I'm seeing a lot of builders do is they're moving away from saying, hey, we've got, you can build from the ground up, and they're going to sell inventory. So which means they will not sell that product until it gets to, like, right at framing or right after framing, which means they're removing some of those customization options because they're trying to streamline their processes. They're trying to, I understand what they're doing, and I think there's a place for it, but it makes the market and it makes the real estate space as a whole a little bit interesting. The other thing to look at too is as we do our research. So this is Texas. They publish research content every month on the housing insight. So this is always interesting to me because it kind of gives you a barometer of where we're at, where we're looking at, and how the market is moving throughout. This is Texas as a whole. Single family permits. So this is I'm recording this video in November. So it says single family permits fell 11.5% month over month to 12,353 assurances, which means that builders came in and said, hey, over the last month, we're getting permits for 12,000 new starts, right? Inversely, it says, San Antonio demand was the only place that had demand increase. It says Dallas accounted for the most of the loss, which is interesting because we have some of the fastest growth happening. I think I attribute part of this to this being toward the end of the year. Maybe it's a little bit of scaredness, but, like, we've got to figure out a way to remove the fear from home builders if we're ever going to get caught back up. So it went down. So you've got construction permits that were ordered, and then you have construction starts, which means they've already got the permits, they're ready to roll. It says that data was down too. It was down 8.5% month over month. So they started 11,000 units. I don't know what that number needs to be, but it needs to be bigger than 11,000. So looking at the big four across Texas, Houston posted the only significant positive change, and Dallas, home projects fell in Austin 15% month over month, and Dallas 5.2%. However, the state's total single family starts value was at $22.8 billion. So the challenge we're seeing is they're having less projects start, but they're starting at a higher price because, again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier of higher labor cost, higher material cost, all of the costs that go into development. So we're seeing this at $22.8 billion. It was consistent with August. It's still well below the 2022 peak, thank the Lord. So we're seeing values increase at the starting point. So what this means is, like, more builders as they're starting homes, we're not seeing those homes start at 200 or 250. It's like, oh, hey, we're saying the value starts at 290 or 310 or 400, depending on the spaces that you're looking at here in DFW. We have a shortage. Like, we need to continue to build, especially here in Texas, especially in DFW. So if you're looking in that new construction space, I would tell you now is a great time to be looking because builders recognize that they need to move product, right? So they're doing what they can to incentivize people because they understand, hey, if the rates are at 7 and 8%, nobody's buying at that point. So they're giving incentive money. They're buying those rates down to make sense. They're giving closing costs. They're giving appliance back. They're doing all these different things to bring buyers in the door. And so, like, we're not seeing bidding wars yet in new construction spaces. But if we don't get caught up, like if the builders don't get to where they're developing more homes, to where we have more development going in, to where land is being used, we're going to start seeing that in this space. And so it's going to be like, oh, because people are like, they're just going to, it's going to grow. Like they're going to continue to move here. So if you want to be in the DFW market and you want to be in the new construction space, now would probably be a really great time to start looking and getting in, especially as the market continues to grow, as DFW extends to expand, and like the outer ring becomes wider and wider and wider. You're probably going to do really well here in DFW. If you have questions, if you're like, oh, I don't know where to start or where to begin, or you want this resource, this Texas A&M resource is, so it talks about loan applications are down, permits are down, starts are down. Like you can, it's great data, it's great research, and you want to talk about it, you have questions, I would love to have a conversation with you. My contact information is down below. If you need somebody to help represent you in a real estate transaction, that is what I do. Whether you're here locally or you're relocating into DFW, new construction is my jam. I love to have a conversation about it. I love to kind of walk you through that and why it might be a good buy for you and your family. But again, contact information right down below. Just reach out. Let's have a conversation, whether it's the end of 2023 or moving into 2024. But at the end of the day, we've got to stop blaming the builders because it's not their fault. So we got to figure out how to cut back on the red tape. We got to figure out how to incentivize them. And we got to look at, hey, like we stopped development a few years ago. We got to get that moving. What I don't mean is like, let's stop. Also, we're not developing like 35 and 40 foot lots. Stop that. Builders, developers, stop it. More 35 and 40 foot lots. Let's make it reasonable at a good price and give people a place to live. So we've got to do that. So again, if I can help you in any way, I want to reach out. Contact information is down below. Hope you found value in this video. I will see you in our next one. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.